格鲁吉亚工商会荣誉主席杰莫伊奈舍维利先生、主席尼诺女士的大力支持，特别是格鲁吉亚政府和格鲁吉亚总理乔治·科维利卡什维利先生的大力支持。那么，总理阁下在丝路国际总商会2届的丝绸之路国际领导人峰会、国际工商领导人峰会上发表了热情洋溢的视频贺词，不仅使我们深受鼓舞，也使70多个国家的与会嘉宾了解了格鲁吉亚良好的投资环境和广阔的发展前景，以及能够给大家带来的发展机遇。在此，我对总理阁下表示衷心的感谢。女士们、先生们、朋友们，今天的论坛是格鲁吉亚在关键时期召开的一次继往开来、展示成果、推动合作、聚焦发展的国会。昨天的论坛精彩纷呈，嘉宾们发表了真知灼见，使大家深受启发。相信本届论坛不仅能促进各国间的信息交流、政策对接，而且必将会带动格鲁吉亚和相关国家的经贸合作和人文交流。总商会全力支持本届论坛，并将推动一系列务实合作项目的落地。在此，我有几点想法与大家分享。第一，开展产业产融合作，搭建高效务实合作平台。总商会致力于推动经济要素的合理流动、资源的高效配置和市场的深度融合，推动会员企业，并通过会员企业扩展到广大的范围内实现产业产融的合作。其中，总商会成立了100亿美元的丝路发展基金，目前已有格鲁吉亚国家伙伴基金等5个国家的主权基金加入，重点投向各会员国家在“一带一路”框架下的支点建设项目，同时还将加强丝绸之路跨境融资租赁联盟与各会员国的合作，特别是在我们高度关注格鲁吉亚的枢纽中心和物流中心的建设，为“一带一路”框架下的经贸合作提供高效便捷的融资租赁服务。第二，开展标准规则对接，完善和构建国际经济治理新秩序，建立统一的消除贸易壁垒、公平竞争的市场规则，推动全球经贸合作发展的基础和重要保证。总商会愿意与政府部门、国际组织以及广大的企业深入合作，促进各国和区域经贸政策、规则、标准的对接和实施，促进开放、非歧视的公平国际经贸投资规则体系的建设。第三，深化旅游合作和文化交流，促进民心相通。国之交在于民相亲，民相亲在于心相通。发展旅游业是促进民心相通的重要途径。总商会将大力宣传有“上帝的后花园”美誉的格鲁吉亚等会员国的旅游资源优势，大力推动中高端的商务旅游的快速发展。每年举办丝绸之路国际文化周，探索人文交流与经贸合作双轮驱动的新模式。此外，总商会创立了丝路阳光基金，资助了乌克兰、黎巴嫩等国家的60名大学生到中国留学，以培养未来“一带一路”上的人文交流的使者。丝路阳光公益基金将会逐步在其他国家开展公益文化交流活动。第四，推进合作联盟建设，实现城市间深度融合发展。城市是开展经贸往来和文化交流的重要的平台。总商会应各国商会会员的要求， 成立了丝绸之路城市联盟。我们欢迎格鲁吉亚和各国主要的一些城市加入丝绸之路城市联盟，从而使该联盟更好地服务于格鲁吉亚等会员国的城市建设和经济社会发展。女士们、先生们、朋友们，当前我们正面临着全球经济的发展方式、治理体系和经济全球化进程的深刻转变。在充满挑战的国际环境下，“一带一路”倡议成为凝聚中国智慧并被国际社会广泛认可的世界的公共产品。它推动着世界新格局的产生、新秩序的完善、新动能的生成，构建起连环世界的广阔的朋友圈，形成普惠的、符合于各国的准则和标准，给丝路相关国家和地区带来更紧密的互动、更丰富的机遇、更真切的可触的获得感。共建“一带一路”是功在当代、利在千秋的伟大事业，让我们携手共建人类命运共同体，为实现人类共同梦想而奋斗。祝大会圆满成功，谢谢大家。
Thank you so much, Mr. Liu. Welcome now to our first panel session of the day, where we will explore the investing and trading opportunities in Georgia. This country is now ranked as one of the top 10 in the world for ease of doing business. That's according to the World Bank and its Doing Business 2018 report, which was published last month and measures whether a country's regulations enhance business activity or constrain it. The annual study places Georgia 9th among 190 economies in the world. That's ahead of Germany, ahead of France, ahead of Canada. The World Bank says that no other country among the top 20 economies can match Georgia in terms of the number of business reforms introduced since 2003, when the annual Doing Business study began. And it's not just the World Bank that rates Georgia highly as an attractive destination with a favorable business environment. The Heritage Foundation's Economic Freedom Index for 2017 ranked Georgia in 13th place among 186 countries. Georgia's economic growth strategy has been based on trade liberalization and a succession of free trade agreements with countries ranging from Turkey and the CIS states to more further afield, Norway, Switzerland, and Iceland. Especially important are its newly signed free trade agreement with China and the Deep and Comprehensive Free Trade Area, DCFTA, which links Georgia to the European Union, its largest trading partner with 30% of overall trade. The EU this month released a report commending Georgia's reform programme and identifying it as a valued strategic partner in the region. In September, the International Monetary Fund published a highly positive fiscal transparency evaluation report for Georgia, identifying good or advanced level practice in 18 of the IMF's standard principles. Also in September, Moody's Investors Service upgraded Georgia's local and foreign currency issuer ratings to Ba2 in view of Georgia's economic resilience. Service-oriented border controls for international travellers and products have been a feature for Georgia's reform programme and have contributed to a 28.5% growth in exports this year and the arrival of 7 million tourists during the first 9 months of 2017. That's the equivalent to the whole of 2016. With us this morning, we have a distinguished panel of experts representing both the public and private sectors who are ready to talk about these issues and to set out their visions for how new investment opportunities can be realized and how Georgia can continue to grow as an attractive destination for business. I would like to welcome first someone who, as Finance Minister, initiated a key program of fiscal reform in Georgia and who now is at the very forefront of bringing new investment into this country. He is both Georgia's first Vice Prime Minister and its Minister of Economy and Sustainable Development. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dmitry Kumsishvili. Next on the panel, I would like to welcome Mr. David Saganalidze, who as CEO of the Partnership Fund leads the private equity and venture capital arm of the Government of Georgia. David Saganalidze. Next, please welcome the Group CEO of the Georgia-focused investment platform, BGEO, Mr. Irakli Gilauri. Please welcome the Acting CEO and Financial Director of this country's largest industrial holding company, Georgian Industrial Group, Mr. Zurab Gelenidze. Our next panelist has had a 24-year career at K-Water, the Korea Water Resources Corporation, and is the Vice CEO of JSC Nenskra Hydro, developing the Nenskra hydropower project in the north of Georgia, Mr. Taekwon Seo. Next, we have Vice President Business Development for Silk Road Group, a pioneer company in reopening the ancient trading routes in the Caucasus and the Caspian region, Mr. David Borga. Our final panelist is from Latvia and is the founder and CEO of the world's leading full-service blockchain company, the BitFury Group, Mr. Valery Vavilov. Now I will invite all our panelists to give us their vision statements on Georgia's investment opportunities. Starting with you first, please, Minister.
Thank you very much. I welcome all of you to Tbilisi Silk Road Forum. We prepared a small presentation to you to update you and give you the information about the ongoing projects and developments in our economy. Because we have so many guests from so many countries, I think that this information can be valuable. And because we are talking about the investment, I think that the stresses which we can make on the presentation can show you the directions where the Georgia is very attractive. So if we look at the charter, you can see that despite unfavorable situation which we had in the world starting from 2014, the GDP growth in Georgia was quite tendency and it was quite good. If you look at this year's progress, this year we have some 4.9% average GDP growth in the first 10 months, which is not a bad number. The projection from International Monetary Fund was some 3.5%, and just 1 month ago they upgraded it to 4.3%. What is good that the external sector become more and more strong, as well as the institutional reforms affected on the growth what we have inside the country. For sure, the business sector, you are the driver of the growth of our economy, and you see that in 2017, the 5% more jobs were created in the Georgian economy in the private sector, as well as the output and turnover were increased. So, and unemployment rate decreased significantly year to year, and despite as I mentioned, that we had quite challenging years, 2015 and 16, we still have the positive tendency. So, and foreign direct investments, we're talking about the investments. And you see in the chart that the investments are quite diversified, starting from the transport and communication, we are about the transport and communication, ending from the house, care, hotels and restaurants. You see that in all directions we are quite attractive. I would like to mention that the current account deficit maybe is one of the most challenging parts in our economy, but still you can see that in the second quarter of 2017 we experienced 7.4% current account deficit, and at the same time we had some 7.7% foreign direct investments, which means that our foreign direct investment even overperform our current account deficit, which is very positive tendency in our economy. So, what affected on current account deficit and how the Georgia's economy is working? So, if you look on the right down chart, you can see that export is increasing. And if you look at the export chart, you can see that the real export increasing by 20%, and altogether it increased by 28%, which is very good, which means that as soon as the external environment will become more and more favorable, our goods will sell to that markets more and more, and at the same time this company supports the creation of the jobs inside the country. So tourism is one of the most important sectors in our economy. Today tourism generates around 180,000 jobs in our country, and it should generate until the end of this year around 2.8 billion United States dollars on our current account. But what is even most important, that we have the clear vision, we elaborate the strategy, the tourist strategy, and under this tourist strategy we should reach 11 million international visitors, and this year we are expecting around 7.2 million international visitors. To translate it to the real economy, it means that there is a huge opportunity to invest on that sector, because the state will continue to support the development of the tourism, and year by year we are spending around 50 million laris just to promote the tourism. I am not talking about the hard infrastructure of tourism, where we are investing around 150 million laris per year, just to support and promote the tourism. So the tourist sector is very attractive. Remittances, we are depending on remittances, but it is positively affected on our economy starting from the middle of 2016. I would like to say a couple of words about the inflation. This year the inflation is a little bit higher, it's around 6%, but still there are the one-off effects, and the core inflation is 4.4%. Why I mention this? Because when investors should decide where to invest, the investor would like to know what kind of inflation is in the country, because from inflation it depends what you should give to your employees, what the salary should be, how it should increase, and how badly it can affect on the economy. So I would like to give you the guarantee that starting from the next year we will have around 2.83% inflation, and Georgia is the inflation targeted country. And with the IMF projection and our projection, it will be around 2.83%. The public debt structure is very good. We have some 42% public debt today, and from this public debt around 33% are the external debt, and all other is the internal debt. Why this is important for the investors? Because it shows how reliable is the country. And in this term, I would like to say that the interest rate, what we pay as a public, is just a 2% per annum. And the maturity is around 40%, which means that we still have a lot of room there. And this chart shows that we have under our fiscal rules the target, not the targeted, the limitation. So the public debt should not reach the 60% of our GDP. And you can see that there is no any scenario where the public debt can reach this 60%. We implement a lot of growth-friendly reforms, and Prime Minister mentioned that the reform about the profit tax was and is one of the most successful reforms. But this reform is only the part of it. So literally what it means for investors, it means that the corporate tax will be taxed even if you distributed the dividends. If you don't distribute the dividends, you don't be taxed on the corporate tax. In reality, it means that only in the first 10 months, the Georgian government give to the private sector as the cash, as the equity, around 360 million lari, which was very important for our country. So we changed the modality. We decreased the direct taxes to support the investors, and at the same time a little bit increased the indirect taxes to cover the gap what we had in our budget. At the same time, we make a very strong commitment to increase the investment spending from our budget and decrease the current spending. What does it mean for the investors? For the investors, it means that we will spend around 40 billion only on the infrastructure, which means the new jobs, which means the new opportunity, which means the need of development of the local production, which means the support of the jobs inside the country, which is enormous potential to create a better and better environment inside the country. We're doing a lot of reforms, and I would like to split these reforms by two parts. The first part is to promote the savings, because the savings are very important for our country. The second part is to promote the productivity, to increase the productivity inside the country. So I will just mention the reforms which are undergone right now in our country, because we strongly believe that this reform should support the sustainable growth inside the country. The capital market reform, which is the direct promotion of the savings, the pension reform, which is the same, the PPP framework, which is the part of the productivity and part of the savings, the deposit insurance reform, which is one of the pillars of the financial sustainability, the accounting reform, the insolvency law, the insurance reform, the dollarization reform, which is very important for our country, and public investment management reform. I would like to stop on that because it is very important for the investors. It means that the government will make decision only when there is a full feasibility studies that this project are very good for the country. It means that the government spend the resources on the most valuable projects in the country. Prime Minister already mentioned the education reform, and for sure the education is the part of the productivity. To promote the professional education, the general education reform, the fundamental reform, and as well as the higher education reform. The spinal infrastructure, so I mentioned when I touched the commitment that we will spend a lot of money to the infrastructure, and this is the part of our reforms, and this is the part of the Silk Road. So we are investing a lot to the east-west and north-south corridors, and as well as the private sector invest a lot to the port infrastructure, and we are investing to the modernization of the railway, which, as I mentioned, means that there is a huge potential from the private sector to support the spending of this money on the proper way. So it gives you a lot of ability, as well as other reforms. And Prime Minister mentioned the inclusive growth, involvement of inclusive government, involvement of the private sector in the legislative process and decision-making process. And Prime Minister mentioned about the business house. What I would like to mention right now is the Investment Council. And this Investment Council is very important for the investors. So the Investor Council was created with the support of the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. And this is the regular meeting, the regular platform between the government and the private sector. Quarterly, we have a meeting. So you can imagine that Prime Minister, all ministers from the economic bloc are sitting there, or business associations are sitting there, or IFIs are sitting there, and we usually invite the Ministry of Justice and other parts which we like to invite. So as soon as the private sector has some issues or problem, they communicate with the business association, and the business association directly delivered this issue to the table where the Prime Minister and all ministers are sitting. So you can imagine that nobody wants to have the same issue after 3 months for the next quarter. So this is very, very helpful platform, and it gives a lot of ability to the private sector to really be very sure that in our country the stability and the support of the private sector will be there. So it was mentioned that Moody's just upgraded us from BA3 to BA2, and I would like to mention that we need only one notch to become the investors grade, which means that a lot of money should come to our country and also to support the economic growth. And as it was mentioned, so by the ease of doing business, we are number 9 worldwide. By economic freedom, we are number 13, and by the less burden on the private sector from the taxation, we're number 9. We're number 9 worldwide. To translate it to the real economy, it means that easy of doing business means that it is very easy to start business in Georgia. So you can open your company in 1 day, in 40 minutes. You can open your bank account. There is no licenses, etc., etc. So you spend less time and less money on the red carpet, which is very important. Less bureaucracy and less expenditures. At the same time, in direction of the economic freedom, it means that there is no currency control, there is no capital control, the flows are open, you can invest and then take back your money from our country without any control. We have the floating exchange rate, which creates the buffers when we have the external shocks, etc., etc., and for sure the taxation. So we have only 6 taxes, all of them are very flat. To count them is very easy. So warm welcome to Georgia. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister. We're running a little late, so I'd ask panelists to restrict themselves to the 4-minute time limit for their visions. And we start, our next panelist is David Saganalitse. 4 minutes for your vision statement, David.
მოგესალმებით. ქალბატონებო, ბატონებო, ძვირფასო სტუმრებო. მე იშვიათად მაქვს საშუალება ასე ძვირფას საზოგადოებას ჩემს მშობლიურ ქართულ ენაზე მივმართო და დღეს ამ შანსს ხელიდან არ გაუშვებ თუ შეიძლება. მეორე ტარდება აბრეშუმის გზის ფორუმი საქართველოში და 2 დღის განმავლობაში გუშინდა დღეს მე ძალიან ამაყივარებით რომ მესმის ევროპელი თუ აზიელი თუ არაბული სამყაროდან მომბრძანებული საკმაოდ მაღალი რანგის სტუმრებისგან ის რომ საქართველო დღეს არის ის ქვეყანა, სადაც ნამდვილად დღეს ინვესტიციების გაკეთება, სადაც ნამდვილად უნდა ჩამოხვიდე ადამიანი, მოინახულო ეს ქვეყანა და ქვეყანა, რომელმაც ძალიან მნიშვნელოვანი ადგილი უნდა დაიმკვიდროს 21 საუკუნის მართლაც უდიდეს პროექტში ერთი გზა, ერთი სარტყელი. ეს ნამდვილად მიუთითებს იმაზე, რომ ბოლო პერიოდში საქართველოში არსებული მოვლენები, ის განვითარების ეტაპები, რომელსაც ჩვენ გავდივართ, ნამდვილად დადებითია. და აქ ერთი ასეთი პერიფრაზებით და გავაკეთო ამერიკელი პრეზიდენტის და ვთქვა, რომ ფაქტიურად მესმის 2 დღის განმავლობაში ასეთი რამ ის რაც კარგია საქართველოსთვის ეს არის კარგი აბრეშუმის გზის პროექტისთვის და პირიქით რაც კარგია აბრეშუმის გზის პროექტისთვის ეს ყველაფერი კარგია საქართველოსთვის. ასე რომ დიდი მადლობა ასეთი შეფასებისთვის რაც 2 დღის განმავლობაში ჩვენმა ძვირფასმა სტუმრებმა ბრძანეს. რაც შეეხება საპარტნიორო ფონდს, მე წარმოვადგენ სახელმწიფო 100%-ის წილით შექმნილ საპარტნიორო ფონდს, რომელიც არის ქვეყანაში უდიდესი საფინანსო ინსტიტუტი. საპარტნიორო ფონდის მფლობელობაში შედის ქვეყნის ძირითადი სტრატეგიული ობიექტები, მათ შორის საქართველოს რკინიგზა, გაზის და ნავთობის კორპორაცია, ელექტროგადაცემა და სხვადასხვა დეტალებში აღარ შევარ. საპარტნიორო ფონდის უპირველესი ამოცანა არის მოიზიდოს ინვესტიციები, საქართველოში განავითაროს ის მიმართულებები, ის ბიზნესები, რომელიც ქვეყანას მიაჩნია, რომ არის სტრატეგიული მნიშვნელობის, იქ სადაც ჯერ კიდევ იმ რეგიონებში არის საჭირო განვითარება ამა თუ იმ ინდუსტრიული მიმართულების და რაც მთავარია დაასაქმოს მაქსიმალურად ადამიანები და ქვეყანაში შექმნას ის კლიმატი, რომელზეც ჩვენ უკვე ვსაუბრობთ. მიმართულებები დივერსიფიცირებულია, საპარტნიორო ფონდს გააჩნია პროექტები როგორც ენერგეტიკაში, ასევე სოფლის მეურნეობაში, ინდუსტრიულ სფეროში, ტურიზმის მიმართულებით და ასე შემდეგ. მოცულობები დაწყებული მილიარდიანი პროექტიდან ეს წარმომადგენელი აქ ბრძანდება, ასევე 1-2 მილიონი მოცულობის პროექტები, როგორიცაა სასტუმროები, სათბურები, სოფლის მეურნეობის სხვადასხვა ობიექტები და ასე შემდეგ. საპარტნიორო ფონდი ეს არის equity პარტნიორი, ჩვენ ვეხმარებით დამწყებ ბიზნესებსაც, რომლებსაც სჭირდებათ გაფართოება, მათ უძლიერებთ კაპიტალს და შესაბამისად ასეთი კომპანიებისგან ხშირ შემთხვევაში ვქმნით ბანკებისთვის უფრო მიმზიდველ კომპანიებს და ვმუშაობთ ძალიან ბევრ ბანკებთან, როგორც საქართველოს, ასევე საერთაშორისო ბანკებთან, აქ ბრძანდება EBRD-ის წარმომადგენლები, ბრძანდებოდა ევროპის საინვესტიციო ბანკის წარმომადგენლები, აზიური, ჩინური ბანკების წარმომადგენლები და ჩვენ მათთან ერთად ძალიან ბევრ პროექტზე ვმუშაობთ და ალბათ უფრო და უფრო გავძლით ამ მოცულობებს. მნიშვნელოვანი საკითხია ის ურთიერთობები, რომელიც ჩვენ გვიყალიბდება როგორც საფინანსო ინსტიტუტებთან, ასევე კერძო სექტორთან. მე მინდა გითხრათ, რომ უკვე 2 წელიწადია საპარტნიორო ფონდი აქტიურად მუშაობს იტალიურ საჩესთან, ესაა იტალიის ექსპორტის განვითარების სააგენტო. ჩვენ 2 თვის წინ მოვაწერეთ ხელი ჩინეთის და ალბათ მსოფლიოს უდიდეს სადაზღვევო ექსპორტის დაზღვევის კომპანიასთან სინოშუართან, რომლის ბრუნვა 4 ტრილიონ ამერიკულ დოლარს უდრის დაახლოებით. ჩვენ გუშინ მოვაწერეთ ხელი და შევქმნით ერთობლივი ფონდი ჩინეთის ერთ-ერთ უდიდეს კომპანიასთან, შანხაის ნომერ 1 კომპანიასთან, CFC-თან საქართველოს მშენებლობის განვითარების ფონდის შესახებ. დღესაც და გუშინაც გვაქვს ხელმოწერები სხვადასხვა სტრუქტურებთან, დიდ კომერციულ კომპანიებთან, ენერგეტიკის სფეროში, ინდუსტრიის სფეროში, ასე რომ ვფიქრობ, რომ საპარტნიორო ფონდი ამ ხრივ ძალიან კარგი პარტნიორი უნდა იყოს, როგორც ქართველი, ასევე უცხოელი ინვესტორებისათვის. ხშირ შემთხვევაში, როცა უცხოელი ინვესტორები მოდიან საქართველოში, კომპანიები, მათ არ აქვთ პრობლემა ფინანსური, შესაძლებელია, მაგრამ მათ უნდა დაგვცრულოს სახელმწიფო იყოს მათი პარტნიორი, ამიტომ ამ შემთხვევაში მინდა ყველა დავარწმუნო და შევთავაზო ის წინადადებები, რასაც საპარტნიორო ფონდი მათ წარმოუდგეს. მე ვხედავ, რომ დროში ალბათ მეტი საშუალება არ მექნება მოგაწოდოთ ინფორმაცია, მზათა ვართ ყოველთვის ნებისმიერი კითხვა, ნებისმიერი ინფორმაცია ჩვენი ოფისის საშუალებით მოგაწოდოთ. ძალიან დიდი მადლობა კიდევ ერთხელ.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sarganalitse. We move now straight to Mr. Galauri.
Thanks for this opportunity. Let me give you some brief overview of our group first. We are the BGO group, which is an investment company focusing on Georgia. We are in banking, in insurance, in healthcare, in utility, in energy, in real estate businesses in Georgia. The BGO group is a London-listed company. It's 100% institutionally owned. We are part of the we are part of the FTSE 250 index, and our market capitalization is around $1.7 billion. In terms of the what I would like to share with you, as an investor, I would like to give our vision for Georgia, what we think, how the Georgia is going to be developing, and why we are bullish about Georgia, and why we are investing in Georgia. So I want to talk about three main points here. I want to talk about the macro outlook. Mr. Kumzishvili has talked a lot the achievements what we have, but basically macro is very strong and policies are very sound. I want to talk about the service hub Georgia is evolving into, and I want to talk about our very recent asset which is not explored. This is a free trade agreements with the EU, with China, and this is basically, I think, that a very big opportunity going forward. So let's start about the macro. So if you look at the macro, we look back 10 years and we look back 10 years. So if you look back 10 years, the Georgia grew on average in real terms more than 5%. It actually grew, in fact, it grew at around 6.5%. So it's a very unique story. At the same time, Georgian lari has appreciated against dollar in the last 10 years in real terms. So in the region there you don't find any other currency which did so. So basically in dollar terms, Georgia has prospered a lot in past 10 years. So now when you look back, after looking back, when you look forward 10 years, we see at least 5% real GDP growth on average, and we see that the productivity is extremely low in Georgia, so it's very difficult for Georgia not to appreciate, Georgian lari not to appreciate against dollar. So we see in dollar terms next 10 year 7 to 8% CAGR growth, meaning more than doubling the GDP of Georgia in dollar terms. So at the same time, I think it was very important that why you really need to believe in the government's policies for the macro to develop. So what the government has been doing, it's actually an amazing story, because government is consolidating the budget deficit is decreasing, but at the same time the infrastructure spending is tripling over next 3 years. So with taxes, eliminating the taxes in Georgia, you have a profit tax for the corporates, you have the private sector investing and the government investing together. That's why we think that growth will accelerate, could accelerate even further. So then you will look at the service industry, and I think it's very important that Georgia is becoming a hub of the region in terms of investment and services, and eradicating the corruption in Georgia was extremely important by bringing the investment in Georgia. Ease of doing business is extremely important by bringing the investment in Georgia, and the low taxes are obviously important. So Georgia has evolved into the service hub of the region, and tourism has tripled in last 5 years, and we expect the tourists to triple in next 5 years. So basically, you would have a lot of investments going into the service sectors in Georgia, like the likes of tourism, likes of logistics, transport, healthcare, education. We think that we will be exporters of healthcare services. We expect the financial services to be exported in Georgia, and Georgia becoming a financial hub of the region. And then the last point is actually the free trade agreements, because Georgia is not only the service industry future. The Georgia is about the manufacturing as well. And why is that? So you have the EU with the largest market in the world, and you have China, second largest market in the world. And you have Georgia in between, which has the free trade agreement with both countries. So and Georgia can actually bring these two largest economies in Georgia, basically, where the China is producing for the European market, and vice versa, European market producing for Chinese market in Georgia. So basically, the free trade agreement, which is our very recent asset, is basically unexplored. But what happens when you have a service industry booming and you have a manufacturing booming? You really need energy for that to support. And basically, what you can look at is that Georgia doesn't have oil or gas, but it has water falling from the mountains. So monetizing that and providing energy to both service and manufacturing industry is I think it will be very, very extremely attractive for the country. So basically, you have a government which has been doing a great policies. You have a macro outlook which is good. You have this free trade agreement. You have service industry developing, and basically this country is probably 30, 50 years ago what Singapore, Switzerland, or Dubai was. So as an investor, you really need to ask yourself: do you want to be investor? Did you want to be investor in Singapore, in Dubai, in Switzerland 30, 50 years ago? And that's what Georgia provides the opportunity to investors, I believe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gilauri. If we could pass down the switch for the PowerPoint now to Mr. Gelenidze.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, friends and partners, let us share our personal experience about investment climate in Georgia. Georgian Industrial Group is the leading industrial group in the country, having quite a diversified portfolio of businesses covering electricity generation, and energy trading business, coal extraction, and real estate. With more than 20 years experience in business, GIG is country's one of the leading taxpayers and employs almost 4,000 people. Company's main activity is electricity generation, and the company operates 3 strategically important thermal power stations with installed capacity of 650 megawatts. On top of that, GIG owns and operates 8 small deregulated hydro stations and effects active trading business with electricity and gas resources throughout the region, having business with most of the leading corporates in the neighboring countries. In continuation of this strategy and as a reflection of One Belt and Road platform, the group is aiming to integrate the same concept in Central Asia, and in coming days, just from the beginning of November, the new office will be established in Uzbekistan, Tashkent. Georgian Industrial Group is having the only coal license in the country, and effects coal extraction, enrichment, and sales on the territory of Georgia. Through the reforms conducted during the last decade, the country has become very interesting, attractive destination for local and foreign investors. Corrupt-free economic environment, low level of taxation, free trade agreements with all the regional countries, European Union and China. These are the factors why the group has decided to extend its business further and to invest in core businesses. In cooperation with the Partnership Fund, we are contemplating a large-scale project which envisages construction of 300 megawatt coal-fired thermal power station in Gardabani. The project will be implemented by the leading Chinese EPC contractor, Dongfang Electric Corporation, and high representatives of the company are kindly joining us on the forum. It should be especially noted that despite the plant is coal-fired, it would be constructed in full compliance with modern international environmental standards. Positive business environment pushes us to diversify further our business portfolio, and insurance business is the next step we started to implement. Last year, at the end of last year, we started new insurance business, and this was our first step in financial sector. Our partners, the businesses started in cooperation with Global Benefits Group from the United States. This is a London Stock Exchange company, a listed company, and this is one of the largest US health and life insurance provider with 36 years experience in business and more than 120 offices globally. Special attention is paid definitely to infrastructure, and our ambitious goals to make a strong footprint in infrastructure business is supported by high professionalism and intensive experience of Italian company Ravenna di CMC di Ravenna. This is the largest infrastructure company in Italy with more than 100 years experience in infrastructure business, construction of tunnels, bridges, thermal stations, and etc. And this is the largest cooperative in Europe. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you, Mr. Gelanidze. Now, Mr. Sio. And if you could pass along the PowerPoint speech, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tae Kwon-seo, Vice CEO of Nanskra Hydro. Nanskra Hydro is a special purpose company of Georgia to develop the Nanskra Hydro project in Svaneti. Yeah, this is the project region called Svaneti. This is northwestern part of Georgia. It's a very beautiful and attractive region. This project is being developed by K-Water and Partnership Fund of Georgia. K-Water is a state-owned company in Korea, South Korea, and the Partnership Fund is state-owned fund of Georgia. Our project has 280 megawatt capacity, and total project cost over $1 billion US. I'm here to make a presentation for Nanskra Hydro Power Project as a real investment model in Georgia. Main investor is K-Water. We are a state-owned company. Our main business are hydropower, water supply, flood control, and land development. We are #1 hydropower operator in Korea. Also, we are monopoly in bulk water supply. Also, we control 100% of flood control capacity in Korea. Our international credit rating is AA2, and our authorized capital is more than $10 billion US. The project company of shareholders are K-Water and Partnership Fund, and the EBRD is a potential shareholder. We have 6 potential lenders: Asian Development Bank, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and EIB. Also, we have 2 state-owned Korean banks, Korean Development Bank and K-Sure. K-Sure is the owner of the Korean Export Credit Agency. This is the main feature of the project. We have Nanskra Dam in the left side, and we have a small weir to transfer the water from the Nakra River to the Nanskra. Also, we have 280 megawatt powerhouse in downstream. We have 2 tunnels. The 2 tunnels will be developed by the 2 tunnel boring machine. Along this project, we can bring the high technology for the dam construction and the tunnel building in Georgia. We established this project company in 2015. Also, we signed IA, PPA, and EPC contract also. Now we are doing land acquisition, detailed design, and upgrade of infrastructures. For development this kind of project, we need the upgrade of the road and other infrastructure facility to make the construction. The expected financial closing will be early 2018, next year. Also, we expect the partial generation early 2021, and we will complete the project on early 2023, and we will do the full power generation from them. Actually, the meaning of the Nanskra project is like this. This is the largest foreign direct investment in Georgia up to now. And after the completion, Nanskra will significantly reduce the power import during the winter season. It means also increase the power export potential during the summer season. We understand that Georgia would like to become an energy hub, power hub in this region. Also, we are creating the job opportunities, mainly during the construction, because we need more than 3,000 workers from the local villagers. Also, along this project, we will improve the local infrastructure like road, power line and everything. It means we are doing project in very remote and poor region of Georgia. So through this project, the region will be good benefit from the infrastructure development. Also, after the completion, we will do some kind of integrated operation with the downstream of Anguri. It means this project can optimize the water resource management along the Anguri River. Also, our project is proud of that there is no physical resettlement. Even though we have developed a large hydropower project, there's no physical resettlement. It means we can manage the social impact very easily. Actually, developing this project, we are working with the Partnership Fund of Georgia. K-Water is the main investor. We are working in some kind of micro level, like the engineering, financing, and environmental and social management. But we need some macro level support. So we have here with the Partnership Fund. Partnership Fund working as an umbrella. It means they are working in the macro level. So if we have any issue in the institutional level, we are asking Partnership Fund to arrange a meeting with the Minister of Energy, Minister of Environment, Minister of Finance. We are getting full support to develop this project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seo. Moving very swiftly on now to David Borger from the Silk Road Group.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to be on this panel. I see there's a lot of interest in this topic, Silk Road, and we are happy to support this initiative because Silk Road has been the name of our company for a long time. Over the last 2 decades, our business was always driven by the vision to link East and West, and by the vision that Georgia is a core of this connection of East and West after the fall of the Soviet Union. We have this theme in our transportation business, where in the early 90s we started transporting oil and oil products through the Georgian corridor. This network was extended to Central Asia. We continued in trading of goods also along the Silk Road, and with the stable economic environment developing in Georgia in the early 2000 years, we became a very strong investor in Georgia. And here we are elaborating on the theme of bringing East and West together, bringing tourists to the country through our hotel developments. We were one of the first to build an internationally branded hotel in Tbilisi, in the city center. We're also working with international architects to remodel the city center. We also have an internationally branded hotel in Batumi, and we're working on other projects. One very important project that is at the core of our development is Sinandali. It is a heritage project where we also develop the tradition of winemaking, and we want to share international experience and bring international people to this place to make it a meeting point, not only for wine but also for culture, and of course to create a great environment for tourists. We also have the theme of international networks in the telecom business. We are the biggest internet provider in the country. Through our IPTV business, we're also bringing international brands, news channels to the country. We have the Fox channels, we have CNN, we have CNBC. So also, again, we are connecting the world with Georgia. We also doing energy business, where we're using this opportunity to export energy, hydro energy, to Turkey, which is working very well. And so like this, we see a lot of, and we're using already a lot of opportunities that exist, and we believe there's a strong future development, in particular in the hospitality sector, where we always see more opportunities coming, and we are more bullish sometimes than our banks, because they see the supply exceeding the demand, but then what happens is demand always exceeds supply. So we are very confident that there's a lot of things to do in Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Borga. And our final panelist with his vision statement is Valery Vavilov.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me for such a great event. It is my honor to be here. And we as a company, as Bitfury Group, we enjoy working with government of Georgia for a few years already. And this country is very innovative, and this country is supporting blockchain technology. Now it's better. This country is supporting blockchain technology, but it's very important in our industry. And I think a lot of people heard what this technology is, and I think but very small amount of people really understand what this technology and how this technology will change our life. And I will try to explain it in a few minutes. Can I get the remote control for the presentation? So to understand what blockchain technology is, we need to go back 20 years ago when internet was created. When internet was created, it allowed us to digitize the information, and now we can send any information, messages, photos, videos, all around the world in a fraction of a second. But anything of value, all our assets are still on paper. Our house, car, company shares, even every single person in this audience is a piece of paper or piece of plastic. It's our passport. So why it happened? Because internet was not designed for secured transactions. And that's why we, from one hand, living in a digital world where everything is digitized, but from other hand, anything of value, all our assets are still on paper. And this happened because internet was not designed for secure transactions. And the blockchain technology and the cryptocurrency is the technology that by default is designed for secure transactions. So with the help of this technology, we will be able to digitize the second part, the most valuable part, the world of assets, the world of value. And why is possible to do this with the blockchain? Because blockchain has one very important feature. Once you place data on a blockchain, it cannot be deleted and it cannot be changed. By this, it cannot be manipulated. And in our world, where one of the biggest threats are cybersecurity, and literally every single software system can be hacked, I think with the help of software and the hardware, combination of both, and with the help of blockchain technology underneath, we will be able to build very secure and reliable and efficient systems, but what is more important, systems that work for the people. And we as a company build a platform that allow any government, institutions, or any other organization to build such systems. And one of the projects that we have implemented in the Republic of Georgia is land title registration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vavilov. Now, we'll turn now to the question part of this session, and we're running slightly late, so I'd ask panelists to be concise in their answers as we ask them questions relating to their own particular areas of interest and expertise. If I can start once again with you, Minister, could you please for us identify sectors of the Georgian economy that are most highly attractive to investors? And also, could you please name the state institutions and mechanisms directed to support private sector development and encourage investment inflow into this country?
Thank you very much. As I already showed you in my presentation, the sectors of economy where we attract the foreign direct investments are quite diversified, and all of them are very attractive, starting from the energy, where we have the potential of around 15 to 20 billion United States to invest on it, ending of the hotels and restaurants, where we already identify the possibility to invest around 3.5 to 5 billion United States dollars. And by the way, this panel is a very interesting panel. So we have the Mr. Vavilov, who represents the most advanced technology right now in the world and most trendy technology, like blockchains and bitcoins, and the philosophy of the blockchains. And by the way, if I'm not wrong, the mining of the cryptocurrency which happened in Georgia is significant, and maybe Mr. Vavilov then tell us the share of the world's mining what we have in our country.
It's quite a significant share. Yeah, we have 2 data centers here, and.
Thank you. So, as I see that this is the commercial secret, so, but believe me, it's quite significant. So, in regards of the instruments, and before I go to the instruments, so the financial sector, and Mr. Gilauri represents the financial and investment sector, and I would like to say that in the wide region, the financial sector is one of the best in Georgia. So, as a stable, as a more advanced, with the, I can say, the best quality of even the internet banking and other type of projects and programs and instruments, products, as well as the investment direction, which is very interesting. And in our reform agenda, the capital market should happen in our country, which means that it will create a lot of opportunity to invest on the capital instruments. So to look to the industrial groups, as Mr. Gelenidze represents, there is a huge opportunity. And Mr. Gilauri, Mr. Gelenidze, both of them told us, and the Prime Minister mentioned, the very crucial, very simple, but very big truth, that the economy is about the demand and supply. And what the government is doing is opening the demand. So we are the small economy, we're 3.7 million population, and you cannot attract the investors if you don't unlock the other markets. And we unlocked it. We already have the access to 2.3 billion consumers market under the preferential trade regime. And I am not count on it the United States, Canada, and Japan, with whom we have the GSP and GSP Plus. So this is the one direction. In other direction, as it was proposed, and I told just about the energy, so there is a huge potential. And as the Silk Road Group representative presents, they are already in a lot of directions. So the hospitality business, the restaurants, the energy direction, the logistics direction, and all these directions are very attractive. And by the way, I would like to invite all of you to participating on the open tender, which is already announced, and you can find on our website, on the Ministry of Economy's website, to creation of the 2 logistical centers near the Tbilisi and near the Kutaisi. The feasibility study is already done by the World Bank and with the high quality consultants. Altogether, this is 170 million United States dollars investment opportunity, and there we have the participation from the partnership fund as an instrument to give the guarantee and to help a little bit with the equity, as well as we are ready to provide the land for free, around 80 hectares near the Tbilisi and around 60 hectares near the Kutaisi. So please take this opportunity. In regards of the other instruments, and I will finish in 1 minute, so we create a lot of instruments starting from 2014. The Produce in Georgia is the instrument which helps the industrial groups, the production, the investors who has willingness to make the production in Georgia by the grant component, and to give them under the investment obligations the state-owned land or buildings or something like that. So, and this is a very successful project. And you need to look at this project. I am sure that in our booklets it described quite detailed, as well as we have the program like a host in Georgia, filmed in Georgia, which means that we support the construction of the hotels. We are even supporting the filmmaking in Georgia. And all these projects are very, very attractive. As well as Mr. Saganelidze just mentioned that the partnership fund is already ready and always ready to support the good investment in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister. Turning now to Mr. Saganelidze from the Partnership Fund. Could you tell us what interests this state-backed fund in investing in a specific project? And what are your key projects? And what tools are available to attract and support investment into Georgia?
Thank you. ალბათ საპარტნიორო ფონდის პირველი და ყველაზე უმთავრესი ამოცანაა შევიდეს იმ სეგმენტებში, სადაც ყველაზე მეტად ქვეყნისთვის არის პრიორიტეტები. დღეს საქართველოში არსებობს სიტუაცია, სადაც კონცენტრირება ხდება მაინც თბილისში, ქუთაისში, ბათუმში, მაგრამ სამწუხაროდ გვაქვს რეგიონები, სადაც დღეს ეკონომიკური განვითარება მნიშვნელოვნად ჩამორჩება ამ ცენტრებს. ამ დროს ამ რეგიონებში არის საკმაოდ მაღალი პოტენციალი თუ გავითვალისწინებთ მათ ბუნებრივ რესურსებს და მეორე მხრივ არსებობს სახელმწიფოს ინტერესი, რომ არ მოხდეს მიგრაცია, არ დაიცალოს ეს რეგიონები და არ წამოვიდეს მოსახლეობა, იმიტომ რომ საბუშაო ეძებოს ცენტრში. ამიტომ განსხვავებით თქვას იგივე ბანკებისგან, იგივე კომერციული კომპანიებისგან, ჩვენთვის პრიორიტეტი არის არა მხოლოდ ის, რომ მაღალი მომგებიანობა გქონდეს იმ ბიზნესებს, რომელსაც ჩვენ ვაფინანსებთ და ბუნებრივია ეს ერთ-ერთი მთავარი ამოცანა, არამედ ის, რომ ჩვენ მაქსიმალურად მოვიცვათ საქართველოს ყველა რეგიონი და კიდევ მეტი, განვავითაროთ ის მიმართულებები, რომელიც საქართველოში ჯერ კიდევ არ არის განვითარებული. ზოგიერთი ბანკი, რა თქმა უნდა, ვერ აფინანსებს სტარტაპებს რაღაც მიმართულებაში, ამიტომ ჩვენ სწორედ იმის გამო, რომ სახელმწიფო მაქსიმალურ პრეფერენციებს ხშირ შემთხვევაში მიმართავს რეგიონებში ან სტარტაპების მიმართულებით, უკვე ასეთ კომპანიებს ხვდით ჩვენ მაქსიმალურად ბანკაბლ, ანუ ბანკებისთვის საინტერესოდ. ერთ საინტერესო ციფრს გეტყვით თქვენის ნებართვით. დღესდღეობით საინვესტიციო პორტფელი, რომელიც საპარტნიორო ფონდს გააჩნია, არის დაახლოებით 2,5 მილიარდი დოლარის. ანუ მთლიანი მოცულობა იმ ბიზნესების, რომელშიც ჩვენ მონაწილეობთ. მაგრამ აქედან საპარტნიორო ფონდის მონაწილეობა არის დაახლოებით 350 მილიონი. ეს ნიშნავს, რომ თითოეულ ჩვენ ჩადებულ $1 დაახლოებით $7-8 მოზიდვა ინვესტიციების საშუალებით შევძელით. და ეს არის მე მგონი ყველაზე მნიშვნელოვანი ციფრი და ყველაზე მნიშვნელოვანი ამოცანა საპარტნიორო ფონდისა. მეორე მხრივ, კომერციული ბანკები ბუნებრივია ძალიან მაღალი პროფესიონალობით უყურებენ იმ ბიზნესებს, რომელიც შეიძლება ან არ შეიძლება მათ დააფინანსონ, მაგრამ როცა საპარტნიორო ფონდი ამ ბიზნესებში არის მონაწილე და არ აქვს მნიშვნელობა რა პროცენტით, აქვე მინდა გითხრათ, რომ ჩვენ მაქსიმალური პროცენტი განსაზღვრული გვაქვს 49, ანუ ყოველთვის ვართ მინორიტარი შერჰოლდერები ბიზნესში, მაგრამ შეიძლება ვიყოთ 5-ით, შეიძლება ვიყოთ ნებისმიერი ციფრი. არ აქვს ხშირ შემთხვევაში ბანკებისთვის მნიშვნელობა რა პროცენტი გვაქვს ჩვენ ბიზნესში, მათთვის მთავარია ხშირ შემთხვევაში ჩვენი მონაწილეობა, იმიტომ რომ ეს გარკვეულად უცხოელი ინვესტორისთვის არის გარანტია სახელმწიფოსთან თანა ინვესტირების, ხოლო საბანკო სექტორისათვის ის რომ ბიზნესში არის ბანკი. ასე რომ ჩვენ დღეს სიმართლე გითხრათ, ჩვენ მაგალითად ვცდილობთ რამოდენიმე სექტორიდან გამოსვლას, მაგალითად ენერგოსექტორიდან. ენერგოსექტორი, რომელიც დღეს საქართველოში ძალიან კარგია, რომ გახდა საკმაოდ კონკურენტუნარიანი, არსებობს შიდა თუ გარე ინვესტორების საკმაოდ დიდი ინტერესი ამ სექტორში, ჩვენ ვფიქრობთ, რომ სახელმწიფო იქ თავისი საქმე უკვე მნიშვნელოვნად გააკეთა და ჩვენ ნელ-ნელა შეიძლება ამ სექტორს ჩავცილდეთ და გადავიდეთ იმ სექტორებში, რომელიც სახელმწიფოთვის არის პრიორიტეტი, მაგრამ ჯერ ასეთი ჯანსაღი კონკურენცია და ასეთი დიდი ინტერესი ინვესტორებისთვის არ არსებობს. ასე რომ ასეთი სფერო ჩვენ დღეს გვაქვს სოფლის მეურნეობა, გვაქვს ინდუსტრია და ასე შემდეგ. დიდი მადლობა. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sarganelidze. Now, Mr. Gilauri, speaking as the CEO of the BGEO Group, how significant was this recent World Bank rating of Georgia at number 9 of all countries of the world in terms of ease of doing business? And what does that mean for Georgia's reputation as an economic hub?
I think for every company to be successful, it needs to be best in the world in something, in very small things. And I guess the same goes for the country. For the country to be successful, it has to be best in the world in something. And we have Germany, who is the best in the world in engineering. We have Switzerland, which is best in the world in finance. And I think that Georgia is the best in the world in investment, creating the best investment climate and the best investment climate for the businesses. So this is the being nice. It is a stamp of approval that Georgia is best in the world. So that's why we as a group, we are very bullish about the future of the Georgia, because we believe that Georgia is the best in the world in business, creating the best business climate in the world. So that obviously the World Bank rating does confirm that. And I believe that we're going to be number 1 very soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Gilauri. Now, Mr. Gelenidze, as the CEO of one of the largest industrial groups in Georgia, you oversee some huge infrastructure projects. Could you tell us why these projects are attractive to foreign investors with which you partner, and why these same infrastructure projects can help to bring future investment to this country?
Thank you very much for the question. As it was discussed yesterday, it was absolutely rightly noted by the first Deputy Prime Minister. Georgia has a very difficult task to tackle with, and this is an absolutely beautiful challenge. It's very important that the country does not become the block on the Silk Road route, and does not. It should be rather considered as the hub, and we see the potential of the country as a gateway from the east to west. And in order to become the hub, we have to invest very actively. And in order to implement this goal, it's also very important to attract private capital, private equity, alongside with all the efforts currently the government of Georgia undertakes. Energy and infrastructure are key to success, and we are actively represented right now in energy business, and we are making our first steps in infrastructure business. Our infrastructure goals are actively supported by our partners, and I'm sure that this will be a very successful strategy, as our strategy is in full harmony with the goals and activities currently the government of Georgia performs. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gelenidze. Mr. Sio, as a leading figure in the global field of hydropower, what would you say are the qualities that make the energy sector in Georgia such an attractive investment opportunity? And how supportive have you found the Georgian government as a partner and fellow investor in projects?
Thank you so much. As you know, only less than 20% of the hydropower potential is being developed in Georgia. It means we have 80% of potential as an opportunity of future. We are here to develop this project with a partnership fund. The partnership fund is like a bridge to fill the gap between the private sector and the public sector. And in every issue, we need some support from the government. Then we talk to the partnership fund, and we talk to the Ministry of Energy and Ministry of Environment. Always we got the practical approach from the government side. Even though there are some gray areas in the institutional levels, but Georgian government always take approach in practical and more efficient way to solve the issues. So during the last 2 years, we saw the many institutional reforms from the tax area and also regulation area. So we will have the more support from the government in the future in the institutional levels from partnership fund. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Seo. Now, Mr. Borga from Silk Road Group. SRG was one of the first to see the value of Georgia's strategic location. What would you say are the key reasons why Georgia is a sound investment in terms of the hospitality and real estate sectors which SRG is involved in? And how do they benefit from the service-oriented border controls in this country in respect of international travellers and goods?
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a good example of how government policies also help to support an industry with the easy access to the country. It really demonstrates that hospitality is the key of Georgian culture, and when we look at the composition of our visitors in the hotels, we see a lot of visitors coming from nearby countries. We see visitors from even Iran increasingly coming to the country, from Asia. But at the same time, we see a lot of interest from business groups, for example, from Russia. So it really shows that Georgia is an interesting place for people to come to enjoy the country, but also to do business and to meet, and it reinforces this idea of Georgia becoming a hub, I think.
Thank you so much, Mr. Borga. And finally, Mr. Vavilov, as an outside investor in Georgia and the founder of the world's leading full-service blockchain company, how have you found Georgia in terms of ease of doing business, especially with regard to the government's approach to e-government and technology following your partnership work with the National Agency of Public Registry?
Yeah, thank you. And before starting business in Georgia in 2014, I heard a lot about Georgia, about Georgian reforms, about how it is easy to do business in Georgia from different people. But one thing is to hear something, but completely another thing is to feel it by yourself. And before starting to do business in Georgia in 2014, we explored different countries to start with our blockchain and cryptocurrency operations. And only in Georgia we found all the factors we need. Very efficient processes. And for us as a company where time matters, it's so extremely important. Second is this country support innovation. It's also so extremely important for our company, especially in this innovative blockchain and cryptocurrency space. And this country doesn't have any corruption and very favorable has very favorable tax regime. But what we also observe, this tax regime is not only favorable in terms of low taxation, but also tax structure by itself. It's very simple. So it's so simple, but you don't lose time filing different kind of papers. It's very simple and straightforward. And of course, labor cost is very compelling and inexpensive, and people are working hard, what is also very important. And country is one of the biggest producer of green energy in the region with the very inexpensive energy cost. And all those parameters make this country very friendly, let's say, for our business. And because this country supports innovation, it was very easy for us to launch land title registration on the blockchain. And Georgia was the first country where we launched this project, and this project is in the active phase of development. And I wanted to say thank you one more time to the government of Georgia for creating such a great and efficient business climate. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those words, Mr. Vavilov, and thank you to all our speakers for their contributions from diverse perspectives this morning. If I can just recap on what we've covered. Dmitry Kumsishvili, the Minister of Economy and Sustainable Development, has given us a microeconomic overview of Georgia and a very positive signal of 4.9% growth in GDP, 5% more jobs created in 2017, with FDI, foreign direct investment, outperforming the current account deficit, 180,000 jobs generated in tourism, and a positive prediction about inflation being driven down to 2.8% next year. We also heard from the CEO of the Partnership Fund, David Sarganelidze, talking about the crucial role of this, the biggest financial institution in Georgia, and how it can provide vital support from a state-backed partner for foreign investments, such as the recently signed partnership with the Shanghai's #1 company, which he spoke to us of this morning. Mr. Gelauri from BGEO gave us some very positive future forecasts about this country, suggesting that there will be considerable GDP growth in the years to come, 7 to 8% growth in US dollar terms, more than doubling in the years to come, and tourism to triple in 5 years. He said that this country was building a reputation as the #1 country for building an investment climate worldwide. We also heard from Zurab Gelanidze of GIG saying how that company benefits from a transparent and private sector-driven market economy here in Georgia, and how GIG plans to expand activities in mining in cooperation with the Partnership Fund and grow its insurance and infrastructure portfolios. We heard from Take One CEO of JSC, Nenskra Hydro, of the 280 megawatt Nenskra power plant, which is worth more than $1 billion and will transfer to Georgian government ownership after 36 years. David Borga of the Silk Road Group, one of the sponsors of this event, told us how SRG has believed for more than 2 decades that Georgia sits at a geopolitical axis connecting Asia and the West. And he told us how SRG has diversified its activities from transportation to corporate telecommunications, energy, and real estate and hospitality. And we heard finally from Valery Vavilov from the Bitfury Group about the very exciting blockchain technology and the reception he's had working here in Georgia from a government very open to the principles of e-government and some of the positive experiences Bitfury has had investing in this country. Please, everyone, could you give your applause to an excellent set of panelists we've had here with us this morning. And we continue straight on. I'm sorry that we're hard-pressed this morning. We've not got time for a break. We've got so many interesting people to introduce to you. We're moving on to our second of the morning, looking at the exciting subject of Georgia as a regional frontier for global investments. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are exciting times Just last month, the Baku-Tbilisi-Kars Railway opened. This line is so much more than its 826 kilometers of rail track. It's a key link in the new middle corridor of the ancient Silk Road, linking China to Europe. This Eurasian bridge will enable goods and people to make the journey from China to Europe in just 15 days. That's twice as fast as the old sea route and for half the cost of air transport. Operational from 2018, it will carry 1 million passengers a year and 5 million tons of cargo, rising to 15 million tons. The BTK railway not only links the Caspian Sea to the Turkish rail network, it creates a new overland rail route that reaches from London to Beijing, and it will place Georgia at the heart of this vital transit corridor. Georgia's strategic position at the crossroads of this modern-day Silk Road can transform it into the new regional frontier for foreign investors and for regional producers from across the South Caucasus and the CIS states who wish to export goods to Europe and the East. In the first 8 months of this year, Georgia's average GDP growth was 4.7%. In that period, average monthly incomes per household have climbed from 346 Georgian lari to 1,042 lari. This growth is enabling Georgia to develop as an emerging business hub. Exports have grown by 28.5% this year. $5 billion of foreign direct investment has come into the country over 3 years. This progress is largely a result of Georgia's growing reputation for providing a business-friendly environment. The government has committed to bringing equal infrastructure conditions to all parts of Georgia, building 1,000 kilometers of road and 300 bridges. Clearly, the potential for Georgia's future growth as an economic hub on this new transit corridor is considerable. And here to discuss the way forward, we have this morning an exceptional panel of experts who I would like to introduce to the stage in a couple of seconds from now. If everyone could take their seats now, and we will invite our distinguished panel of speakers to the stage to address the second of our panel-based sessions of the day, looking at the wider regional picture of Georgia as a regional frontier for global investments. Hello, everybody. If we could take your places now, we're ready to start with this second panel session of the day on the subject of Georgia's position as a global, as a regional frontier for investment. First of all, I would like to invite onto stage someone who has served for 7 years as Vice Minister of Economy here in Georgia, and who now, as the CEO of JSC Anaklia City, is developing a critically important special economic zone alongside the deep sea port at Anaklia on Georgia's Black Sea coast. Ladies and gentlemen, Mzketi Bochorishvili. Our next panelist has worked for more than 20 years at one of the world's most famous, where he is Area Vice President for Eastern Europe, Mr. Pankaj Birla. Next up, we have the CEO of Ajariskali Georgia LLC, AGL, a hydropower joint venture project which brings together India's Tata Power, Norway's Clean Energy Invest, and IFC, part of the World Bank. Mr. Prashant Joshi. Our next panelist is a partner at Ernst & Young EY and leads its infrastructure team for the EMEA regions. Please welcome Mr. Richard Tollis. Next, I would like to introduce a senior figure from the European Investment Bank, where she is Director for countries neighbouring the European Union. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Flavia Palanza. And from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EBRD, where he is Director for Caucasus, Moldova and Belarus, Mr. Bruno Balvanera. Thank you. We will go now to the vision statements from each of our panelists on the subject of Georgia's role as a regional frontier for global investments. We start with the CEO of the remarkable Anaklia city, Mzketi Bochorishvili.
Good afternoon. It's my great pleasure to address such a distinguished audience. I know it's last session and has been very interesting today, so I would like to use this opportunity and congratulate the organizers and the country of Georgia and the government of Georgia and the Ministry of Economy for putting such wonderful event and giving us the opportunity to present and to interact, and I think that will be a good basis for our future cooperation. I represent Anaklia City, which is a private company established by a joint venture by two very reputable companies, which is one Georgian leading investment group, TBC Holding, and a very prominent American company, Conti International. Before I will explain Anaklia itself, let me show you one slide which I find amazing, because while we today are talking about making Georgia a regional hub and philosophy and a shortcut of Central Asia and Europe to Asia and from Europe to South, this map is from 19th century, and when heavy industrialization was taking place, and it was very important to move cargo and people themselves, also to share the information was very important, and Indo-European telecommunication lines was crucial in that time. And as you see, it's a southwest line, one of the most optimal in that time. time, 11,000 kilometers, which was lying down by different countries, and Georgia was among them. And not only that it went through Georgia, the branch office of Siemens was in Georgia, and Walter Siemens was dealing the rest of the countries from Georgia. So back in the 19th century, Georgia already served as regional hub of businesses, and also it was one of the shortest routes from south to west, which we are talking about today, and which already we have a huge history of doing even back in the 19th century. So what is Anaklia? Today, as we discussed, and many of our leaders have outlined the importance of development of the deep sea port on Black Sea coast, we are in the process of developing of hinterland. The first phase of the hinterland we estimate to be industrial, logistical park, but in the future we estimate that it to be a proper city, which will have the green economy principles and will have smart economy principles to make sure that we're going to meet all the modern tendencies which is needed in today, not only today, but in the future. We are thinking to have, as I mentioned, logistical warehouses, industrial part at the beginning, but in later stage it will encompass to be a full city which will have different services like tourism, health, educational clusters, and many other activities. And today, as I'm talking about in front of you, and we are talking about bringing the multinational companies, we assume that Anaklia will become a frontier place for international and multinational companies and corporations to use this perfect location. I have to mention that Anaklia will be fully integrated with the deep sea port and with national infrastructure through a new highway and railway link and the airport, which is only 90 kilometers away, and it will have all the best business environment and streamlined processes, which is very important for the international investors. Again, before also going into details, I would like to show you this map and show the potentials. From Anaklia, you can reach the primary and secondary markets. Primary market, which is Caucasus, and Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, which is in total 17 million population, over 102 billion of economy. I have to also mention the secondary market, which is very important, which is around all the Central Asian countries and Northeast Iran, around 147 million population, over 750 billion of economy. And this is something that you can use Anaklia for your distribution center to reach those markets quite easily. And this is something that for businesses and multinational companies, considering Georgia, it's a good platform to reach Georgia and beyond these countries. Today, the first Vice Prime Minister very detailed explained why Georgia and why you have to come to Georgia. And I'm very happy that together with this business environment that we have and the trade regimes that Georgia can reach to over 2.3 billion population, of course, and having a state-of-art infrastructure in terms of the deep sea port with the latest technology and the organized industrial zone, of course, that will be the cutting decisive moment for the international companies to use this infrastructure. I have to also mention that Anaklia at the beginning can become a distribution, assembling hub, storage, distribution centers, but later on, of course, you have to consider the manufacturing opportunities, taking into consideration the trade regimes that we have. Just to give you an example, with the new opportunity that Georgia has the free trade agreement with China, cosmetic companies, European companies who are exporting to China, they pay 10% of import duties. And from Georgia, it's zero. And there are many other opportunities in different subsectors and different areas, which I really encourage the businessmen to find out, dig it out, and work together with us to see all the potential. Again, what we are thinking at the beginning is to concentrate on light manufacturing, and this is the city that will be totally concentrated on the light manufacturing, and to make sure that it will go to our strategy to make this place very green and sustainable and very eco-city. And we'll start with fast-moved consumer goods, electronics, homes, appliances, apparel, packaging, automotive spare parts, beauty products, equipment. And later on, of course, there will be a lot of other services like education, financial, healthcare, high-tech, many, many others. And I would like also to give you one example that Panasonic has recently decided to switch their business activities from Hamburg to Georgia, and they are doing the regional distribution, not only distribution, but assembling and packaging and sorting from Georgia. So those are already successful examples that some multinational companies are already using, but much more has to come, and we encourage you to find out more about Anaklia City and about Georgia and to use this opportunity. Thank you very much. I try to be short.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Ms. Keti Bocharishvili. If we could just pass the clicker right down the queue, down the line here of panelists. Pankaj, if you could pass it right down. We have a slight change of order in terms of panelist speakers. Mr. Bruno Balvanera is next going to give us his vision statement, his perspective of Georgia as a regional frontier for global investments. Mr. Balvanera, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and apologies for changing the timing. I have another meeting. We're running late, but thank you for accommodating us. I arrived to Georgia 4 years ago, and I had a vision of Georgia, and today this vision is materializing. I saw Georgia as a, if we can put my slides, Georgia as a country, relatively small, surrounded by a difficult environment with limited natural resources. And I was thinking, which countries in the world have had this environment and have been successful? And to my mind came Estonia, particularly in the Baltics, probably the other two as well, Israel and Singapore. And this morning, Irakli Gilauri was saying the future of Georgia is become the Singapore of the future. And today, together, we are building the Georgia of the future. And what you are seeing today with such a engaging government, so good macroeconomic figures, so openness to the world, is what I think is the beginning of a growth and a success story. The EBRD has been involved in the country for 25 years. As of today, we have invested close to 3 billion, probably very soon more than 3 billion, in the country. That ranks Georgia as the largest investment per capita in the EBRD region. It is about 850 euros per capita. We have done that over the last 25 years. But of course, over the last few years, we have increased our activity. Today, we have a portfolio of about 700 million. We have also some other projects. And our activity is basically divided in 4 big sectors. The first big sector is power and energy. And the reason for that is from multiple reasons. The first one is Georgia needs energy security and energy independence because of its neighborhood. And since Georgia does not have oil and gas, but as it has snow in the mountains, high mountains, and as Irakli said, they capitalize that and convert it into money, this is creating renewable, cheap energy that companies and population, of course, can benefit, but more importantly, companies and the people from Bitfury and Bitcoins, their key input is energy. And cheap energy is one of the reasons why they decided to come here. Not the only one, but it was one. So we have focused in energy, and in energy we have been working for years, first in the Nguri hydropower plant, which is a very special one because the dam is in Georgia and the powerhouse is in Abkhazia. And that has, of course, an element of geopolitics that help probably to have some understanding with the region. This is a state-owned company, but since then we have been involved in a number of small, medium, and large hydropower plants. I can name a few. I can name Paravani with a Turkish investor. I can name Acarascali with clean energy and Tata. And of course, I will name Nenskra, who was in the previous panel, the largest hydropower to be built in the modern times in the region and possibly in the world. And in which the EBRD is committing a large piece of financing as kind of a leader and we will be the first IFI to approve it. We go to the board in 1 week, and with a complement of equity. It's not only that, we have also been involved in other renewable. We have started with the wind, and those of you who traveled in the country, you can see on the top of the mountain of Gori these new power blades that are turning, and this is a small one, but this can be scaled up, and we are involved also in solar. But of course, this is not enough to produce energy. You also need to transport it to the markets, domestic markets and exports, and we have been also participating in a number of transmission lines activities. The second one, extremely important, is the banking sector. The banking sector here is very strong, very highly capitalized, very liquid, profitable. And I would say that it's remarkable that for a country of this size, the two largest banks are floated in the London Stock Exchange. And with a little bit of pride, I would say that this was also thanks to DBRD, because we have been in the equity in these banks in the early days. We have helped in the transformation of the banks to bring the governance, to bring the transparency, the operations, and to bring the name of DBRD that enabled them to float them in London. But today there's another company already floated in London, and soon another one. So for a country like Georgia to achieve that is huge. We work also with other banks, although it's highly concentrated into two ones, not only in equity, but we have also given to them a number of credit lines for general users, whether it is for SMEs, whether it is for women in business, whether it is for energy efficiency, and more recently, with a huge success, our DCFTA line that is providing resources to the companies in Georgia to adopt the association agreement and the DCFTA regulations to be able not only to export to Europe, but to produce local products in accordance to the obligations that they have undertaken. So there's a huge work there. In addition to that, we were the leading institution issuing Georgian laris so that we could offer laris to our clients, because of course one of the problems of the country is that the banking sector is highly dollarized. So we are ahead of that. And looking at the future, we're looking at insurance, we're looking at leasing, and at factoring, and to diversify the financial system. The third sector is what we call manufacturing and services, is what Katie in the previous presentation mentioned, light industry. This country does not need to have big capital investments like Germany or like Japan to produce cars. The time is over. Israel does not have that, Estonia does not have that, Singapore does not have that. But what they have is light industry and innovation. We've been heavily involved in healthcare, in pharma, in services, in retail, and more we see interest of companies to produce not very things with a high investment, but with an additional value that is coming from the people and from the technology and the innovation. The final sector that you can see in the slide is small, is infrastructure. You heard in the first panel the huge objectives that the government has in terms of roads. These are mainly financed by our brother and sister institutions like the EIB and the Asian Development Bank. They have more competitive resources. We are focusing much more in the private sector. But what is important is that we are paving the ground for the involvement of the private sector in this area. And Deputy Prime Minister Kumshishvili highlighted the importance of the PPP law, which is a law that DBRD has designed and executed for the government that is going to be approved by the government. So all in all, we have a huge activity in the country, not only in financial terms, but more importantly in policy dialogue, very rich agenda that goes from PPPs, from energy efficiency, mining, competition, and a number of many other areas. And finally, because of course money counts, last year we had a record year of 250 million euros investment in 1 year. This year we are going to exceed 320, 350, and this is without Nenskra, which on its own is going to be more than 200, that, as Mr. Seu from Nenskra said, we will be closing in early 2018. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Balvanera. And if we can pass the clicker down to Mr. Pankaj Birla from Marriott International. Apologies for the change of the running order, Mr. Birla. If you could now give us your vision of the regional frontier. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ian. And it's great to be here. For somebody who comes pretty often to Georgia, it's great to see the bright future the country holds. Again, Marriott, for those of you who know, we have been present in Georgia for a while, and the future looks brighter than ever. So if I can see my slides, please. So just to start, I just thought the opening picture you can see is our Sheraton Batumi. As you can see, we've been there for a few years. And just to give you, I'm going to start with a quick little overview of what is Marriott today. Marriott today is the largest hotel company in the world. With the addition, we acquired Starwood a year ago, which is the biggest acquisition in the hotel industry. We became the largest, but we would like to be known as the world's favorite travel company. And that is our goal in Georgia, to be your favorite travel company. We employ almost 375,000 associates across all our hotels worldwide, and that number is growing. Again, Marriott is something that has a rich history. We've been in this business for over 90 years. Our founder is still the chairman of the company. And now with the addition of Starwood portfolio, we have added 12 more brands. So Marriott has 30 brands to suit every traveler need. And we are looking to introduce a few of our newer brands here in Georgia in the coming years. Just again, as I said, our goal is to be the world's favorite travel company. Marriott has presence starting with, some of you may have heard, in the luxury tier. We have got Ritz-Carlton, St. Regis, Luxury Collection, Bulgari, the W Hotels, down to Element, Town Place Suites, and Moxie, which we are getting ready to introduce in this market. Again, just a little bit in Europe. Why I say Europe? Because a big source market for our growth is Europe, and we see more and more travelers coming into Georgia from Europe. Today in Europe, we are operating 520 hotels, present over 42 countries. I am responsible for all of Eastern Europe, and we are spread across 15 countries here, starting from Prague to Novosibirsk, and from the other side, from St. Petersburg to Tel Aviv, and in between you have the growth in Georgia. And we have 107, and our pipeline is strong, and Georgia is a strong part of that growth. Again, just to highlight Marriott in Georgia, we have 3 brands. We have Marriott, Sheraton Mechi Palace. It has a rich history. All of you know it was the first brand in international hotel, and it's going through a major renovation, and we're looking forward to opening it into 2018, in late 2018. We have a Courtyard, and we are getting ready to, again, as we spoke about the future, we are getting ready to add 4 more brands. Moxie, which is going to open. That's the first international investment on the other side of the river, which is going to be on the Saarbrücken Square. And then we're getting ready to open a couple of Autograph hotels, one in Ureki, close to Batumi, and we're getting ready to open another Paragraph hotel here on Freedom Square, which is under our Autograph collection. We have a Le Méridien that will open in Batumi, and we have a Courtyard that will open in Batumi. Again, our pipeline is strong. So basically, we are looking to double our growth in Georgia in the coming years. We are very excited about our growth. We love the people here, and I'm very excited to be here to see this country grow in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Birla. So next up, we have Mr. Prashant Joshi from AGL in the hydropower sector.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's a distinguished honor to be here, present in this forum, and represent my company. To begin with, I think Georgia is in a very exciting phase of its growth story. Its geographical location enables it to tap and release its potential of huge hydropower resources, which is largely untapped as of now, and linked with the European markets as well as the surrounding neighboring countries. I'm proud that our company has made a good beginning by executing a significantly sized hydropower project, and I would just like to introduce this project for the benefit of the attendees. Ajariskali, Georgia is a joint venture between Clean Energy Invest Norway, Tata Power Company India and IFC Infraventures, arm of IFC, part of the World Bank Group. Both the sponsors, Tata Power and Clean Energy, have a significant experience in development and operations of hydropower projects. This project is funded by a group of multilateral institutions, EBRD, IFC, and ADB, and hence it represents a truly international character of a project implemented in Georgia. This also signifies one of the largest FDI projects implemented in Georgia. Another significant feature I would like to highlight, this project has brought together people from different nationalities, from varied cultural and linguistic backgrounds, who have coordinated successfully towards the implementation of this project. To just take you through the technical details, it comprises of two power plants, the 178 megawatt Shuakevi power plant, which is commissioned almost, and the 9 megawatt small Skalta power plant, which is under commissioning currently. It comprises of a series of tunnels, dams, weirs, and power plants. The complexity of the project can be gauged by the geographical spread, as also by the mountainous region in which these projects are situated. Almost 37 kilometers of tunneling work was undertaken and completed in a record time of less than 3 years. I think this is quite a remarkable feature of this project and speaks volumes about the people who have contributed. Just to take you through to various elements of this project, this is the Shuakevi powerhouse. The civil works was completed by AG Turkey through their company in Georgia, and the electromechanical works were supplied by Alstom, which is now GE Power. The power evacuation is through a 220 kV transmission line, double circuit line built by GAC, and this will enable also in future to export this power to Turkey as well. Just to give a flavor of the various installations, this is one of the biggest dams, reservoirs, which gives us a certain peaking capacity for the project. You see this bridge, which was also part of the project and was a remarkable feature in this execution. This is the Skalta powerhouse, which is a small K1 powerhouse comprising of 3 units of 3 megawatts, and the equipment is supplied by CKG, Czechoslovakia. In line with the philosophy of the sponsors, who have a tremendous, who place tremendous value in involving the local communities, as also the intention and the compliance requirements of the international lenders that have funded this project, AGL has consistently demonstrated throughout the project huge responsibility towards environment, health, and safety. In terms of some successful pilot experiments that were done in consultation with the lenders, E&S consultants, and the experts appointed by AGL. You can see it by ensuring environmental flow through the various dams so that the riverbed continuously stays wet and enable marine life, also enabling fish pass. You can see the safety practices that have been implemented. The salient feature of this project, typically hydropower projects depend a lot on various factors they encounter because of the geographies in they located. They encounter social issues, social challenges, environmental challenges, and if you don't involve the community in it, then probably you will face more hurdles. One of the remarkable features that we implemented was a very systematic and well-planned strategy in community engagement involving all the stakeholders, including the local community leaders of surrounding villages, the local governments, periodic engagements, explaining them the project features, explaining them the features of the operation, hearing to their concerns, addressing their concerns in a very systematic way, a very strong grievance handling process, which is of course monitored by the lenders' experts as well for the compliance. And this contributed a great deal towards building confidence among the local communities about the benefits of this project. In terms of corporate social responsibility, the philosophy of the sponsors has always been that whatever we do it in a sustainable way, and to that extent we focused on 3 major areas: education, community and empowerment, and infrastructure. During the peak construction phase of the project, almost 1,500 people worked on this project, more than 50% local Georgians, And during the operation phase, probably this percentage would go much higher, around 90%. In our future projects, probably based on the learnings that we have gathered in this project, we'll probably look forward to increasing this local content, which will not only develop confidence among the local communities, as well as bring more benefits to the region, but also develop local skills and capabilities to supply for future projects in this country.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joshi.
Just one last point I would like to make. Such a complex project involving social issues and environmental issues, to implement it in time and on schedule, it takes a lot. It speaks of the probably the support the government also gives. And what a refreshing change this country is, that the local governments, the central federal governments, they are so approachable. If you have issues, you please request for a meeting and they are there to listen to you, and what in possible manner they are able to solve and resolve to the extent possible. I think that's one of the remarks, and we really appreciate the support from, and no wonder, and this is probably the reason why the ease of doing business rankings rate Georgia so highly. Thank you.
That's very encouraging. Thank you so much, Mr. Joshi. Now we move to Mr. Richard Tolles from EY. Your vision, please.
Thank you, and thank you also to the hosts for inviting us. It's certainly an honour to be here. If I can just get my slide up, I've only got one, you'll be glad to hear. Many of you will, I'm sure, know Ernst & Young, but you may know Ernst & Young, for example, as accountants or tax. In fact, Ernst & Young is also one of the world's leading consulting and financial advisory services businesses with a massive global spread. In the context of infrastructure and logistics, we provide a lot of advice on right from the very beginning of a project, for example, considering feasibility, structuring a project, through things like regulation, tariff design, these kind of things, right through to financing and arranging financing. In fact, we are actually the largest arranger of private placements in the EMEA market, so we're a huge financial advisor and finance arranger as well. And of course, we also have a very broad geographic spread. We're present in all of the countries that are affected by the Silk Road, including countries like Iran and other countries that are sort of supporting the central core of the Silk Road and affected by it. And of course, we've been present in Georgia for a long time. We have a particularly strong team in Georgia, and we're involved in a lot of major projects here. And then going right the way east, we're involved in projects, for example, right up to the Khorgos Gateway on the border of Kazakhstan and China. So very broad geographic spread. And with that context, I guess I'd just like to make a few remarks about the issues in developing and delivering many of the Silk Road projects and why I think Georgia is so important to that. So much more generally, not thinking just about Georgia, I would say that many Silk Road projects are actually quite challenging to finance. We may all here have quite a passionate belief in the potential of those projects and the potential of the region, not just in hard infrastructure, but in all the other supporting activities that go on as well. But from a financing point of view, particularly from a project financing point of view, there are challenges. One of them is that many of the projects are interlinked. So particularly in transport, this is true, and particularly in logistics, but it's true for other things as well. And from a project financing point of view, that's challenging. You need to believe that the other parts of the jigsaw puzzle will be in place when the thing that you have financed is there as well. So there are challenges from that position. Also challenges that a lot of these projects are very long life projects. The payback period on a lot of infrastructure in particular is very long. Many of the countries that are involved are not investment grade. It's actually very difficult to raise long-dated infrastructure finance for many of these projects. The market simply doesn't exist, either because there is no local financing, there is simply no liquidity in the local markets, or because international investors may have concerns, for example, about long-term currency positions, whether they're still, if they lend in dollars, if they're going to get their money back in dollars, or how that will work. So there are definitely some real challenges in financing a lot of this infrastructure, even though it is critical. And I think what's particularly interesting is much of this infrastructure has a long-term social value, and therefore actually it's a kind of a public interest investment, and that is why I've been particularly pleased to hear about the discussion about the development of public-private partnerships, because I think this is absolutely fundamental to delivering many of these long-dated, long-payback projects that are so critical. In many cases it is difficult to get private capital to develop, certainly fully, many of the greenfield projects, the early stage projects. The risk appetite is simply not there. And I think in these situations where there is clearly a big social payback from the projects, it's really helpful to see the involvement of people like the EBRD and other multilaterals who can take that longer term social view. And I think in this kind of market, in the Silk Road projects, the case for that kind of investment is very clear. I think in other markets, there may be arguments about whether multilaterals are crowding out private capital. But in emerging markets like this, particularly with this sophisticated discussion about the transition from public capital to private capital over time, I think there's real potential. And I think, so I feel very excited about this. But of course, the involvement and the greater involvement and the need for public sector capital and interest in these projects also calls for a discipline on the public sector. We advise both the public sector and the private sector in structuring projects. It calls for real discipline for the public sector to think about, well, where is the value in this project for the government and for society? Many governments, I'm not suggesting Georgia at all, quite the reverse actually, but in many environments we have governments who are promoting projects because they think they're politically appealing, but actually they may not have the social value. This is why I was very pleased to hear about the importance placed on feasibility studies early on in projects. The other point that I would make is if the public sector, if government or multilaterals are investing in projects, they must be thinking about where is the public payback, where is the value to their shareholders, i.e. the taxpayer, in all of this. Some of it comes from feasibility, but some of it also must come from how is the infrastructure or the logistics centres, how are these actually going to generate value? And this is why I was certainly very interested to hear the example of the Anaklia SEZ, because I think this is a great example. If we develop infrastructure across the Silk Road, and a lot of countries are hosting that infrastructure, that's great for people who are selling goods, but where is the value for the countries that are putting the infrastructure in place? Obviously, if they tax it or if they charge revenues on it, then the competitive benefit of putting goods through that system reduces, and therefore people need to be thinking much more about where is the value add. If we think about the original Silk Road thousands of years ago, that was very much about products being developed as they flowed down the Silk Road, being added, being combined, creating a lot of different values. And I think where we see projects like the Anaklia SEZ, we see real opportunity for people to add value and to really make the Silk Road work. So I guess the themes for me are very much about public-private partnerships, the involvement and how they work together, and how do we get value out of the Silk Road.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tolles. Now, last but not least, from the European Investment Bank, we have Flavia Palanza. Your 4-minute presentation, please, on Georgia as a regional frontier for global investments.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting the EIB to this panel. Very briefly, to put the bank in the context, we are the financial arm for long-term investment of the European Union. And as such, we implement in the financial area the policies of the European Union. We do that in our member states and in the partner countries with the objective to promote growth, to promote development, and to promote economic integration, both within the EU and between the partners and the EU. The partnership with the Eastern Partnership countries are of key importance to the European Union, and this is reflected in our activities, in our presence. Over the last 10 years, we've been present in the region since 2007. Our lending volume has increased exponentially, and last year, in 2016, lending to the 6 countries totaled 1.6 billion. Within the partnership countries, the countries that have signed an association agreement with the European Union are key. And these countries are Georgia, of course, Moldova, and the Ukraine. These are countries where, which are seeking political association with the EU and specific economic integration. In Georgia, the importance of this partnership, this association with the EU, and the importance of the excellent relation that Georgia has with the EU is also reflected in what the EIB is doing. We're celebrating now our 10th anniversary of activity in Georgia as well, and our portfolio has increased tremendously. It's now at also at 1.6 billion, and in per capita term, Georgia is the largest recipient of EIB lending in the region. My colleague from the BRD explained how widely their presence and their spreading in Georgia. We are much more focused, and we are focusing on the EIB's. We are focusing on supporting the government's objectives, the government's vision of making Georgia a point of crossword between the East and Europe, and at being an economic hub for the region. And in this, we are supporting the governments in two areas: in infrastructure, notably in transport. We have invested almost 1 billion in the transport sector. And the other area is support to the private sector through directly for larger businesses or through local banks for SMEs. I think it's important to point out that we're not only supporting the private sector by providing lending, but by providing instruments that are geared specially to the ambitions to make Georgia grow as in terms of innovation, and make Georgia grow in terms of trade and competitiveness within the larger European framework. And for this we have two instruments, one which is called Innofin, that provides guarantees, provides advisory, and provides loans for enterprises in innovative sectors. And we have an instrument as part of the deep and comprehensive economic and trade development for to help enterprises become more competitive in commercial terms and to be able to operate in the international market. This is all for the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Palanza, for that presentation. Now we're going to turn now to the question-based part of this session, where each of our panelists can address issues relating to their particular areas of interest and expertise. And I'd like to start again with you, Ms. Bocharishvili, for Anaklia City. Georgia has a total of 4 free industrial zones and several free tourism zones as well. It sounds from what you were saying in your presentation like Anaklia City has a great mix of features in its setup for being a future city. What would you say would differentiate Anaklia City from the other zones? And what are the biggest challenges you face in developing your zone?
Thank you, Jan, for the question. Let me start with that yes, you're absolutely right. Georgia has 4 industrial zones, but if we also look in the world, there are hundreds of industrial zones, and you have to make sure that you have to be competitive and you have to have advantages compared to other industrial zones as well. And we have seen a lot of successful cases, and we have seen a lot of not successful cases. And of course, for us, to learn the best scenarios and to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes, but to rather capitalize on the success stories is the main task. First of all, I have to mention that Anaklia has a special economic zone status, which is defined in the Georgian constitution. And this gives us an opportunity to define totally a brand new law with the government of Georgia, which actually gives us also an opportunity to create incentives, but not only tax incentives, because I don't like, in general, tax incentives. There might be some other incentives that will bring international companies. One of those we are considering maybe bringing an English law, because this industrial zone, we think that should be for the multinational companies, and they are more aware about the English law maybe than the local. But this is just an example. So we are in the process of defining, together with the government, a brand new legislation which will be further attracting the multinational companies. The second, I have to mention that in the first phase, as I mentioned, we are looking to develop the 400 hectare land, but in total we are looking to develop 2,000 hectare land. And what also the best cases show us, if you start with only industrial and logistic park, it's not enough, because when multinational companies they come, they need a proper city to live, meaning proper residentials, financial centers, business environment, healthcare cluster, educational cluster. So we envisage at the end of the day to develop all the multi-service approach and to make sure that the quality life is acceptable for the international companies. I have to also mention that our vision is to encompass and to become a green eco-city and smart city, which is a future of probably any of the cities. And we are actually taking this principle from the scratch, and we are planning to integrate this at the very beginning to make sure that we are providing the state-of-art infrastructure for the companies. We are the hinterland of the deep sea port, and that's the only deep sea port in Georgia, which of course creates additional opportunities. As you know, at this point, Georgia could only receive 1,500 TEU capacity ships, and some of the big companies are not interested to go through Georgia. It's quite small quantities, while the Anaklia deep sea port will enable to receive 10,000 TEU capacity ships, which will create a totally different opportunities. So transport forwarders, logistic companies will capitalize on that, and again this will be a big advantage. Not only that we have deep sea port, we will be fully integrated with the national and regional infrastructure, as government of Georgia already committed to do the railway and road link, which will be integrated fully to this industrial zone. And of course, not only hard infrastructure is important here, I have to underline the soft infrastructure, because we make sure that there will be all the processes streamlined, so any double handling or any additional steps will not be required, and everything, both hard infrastructure and soft infrastructure, will be planned according to make sure that it's fast and easy to do the business in Georgia. I have to mention that, again, our main and target is to bring at the beginning the logistic warehouses, distribution hubs, and I briefly mentioned the primary, secondary markets, but I have to also mention definitely that Georgia is 8 days away from China and 4 days away to any point of the European countries. So definitely to capitalize on that, as well as to capitalize from Europe to Iran and Europe to India trade route, which is currently around 90 billion from Europe to India and around 50 billion Europe to Iran, which will double as soon as the sanctions are over. Of course, there is a lot of opportunities to consider manufacturing, assembling, and added value activities in Georgia. So I think we look at a very comprehensive level, and as the first phase of the port will be completed by 2021, we also aiming that the first phase of the city will be completed by that time, and already working with future tenants, future large international logistic companies, as well as big distributors and importers and exporters, as well as manufacturers, to offer them this opportunity in Georgia. port is developed by all the reputable companies, all the feasibility studies, including environmental study, master planning, or feasibility studies have been done by the top reputable companies. So we are receiving to have a state-of-art infrastructure. Likewise, we are now in the process to develop the master plan, both in terms of the business services as well as the how we're going to plan this area by the international top company, which will give us the opportunity to phase out this project to make sure that it's going to be sustainable, but from the other side, to make sure that we have the opportunity to further develop the hinterland and to really get the incentives and multiply effects from the deep sea port and all the infrastructure which is created. Because first of all, this industrial zone and this city will be the major job creation in our country, and it will be a platform for international companies to use as a frontier place where all is organized. And one but not least, I have to mention, we today again worked and talked about the business environment, which in Georgia is excellent, but you need to provide the international companies the sufficient infrastructure. And everybody will agree that this was missing. And through this deep sea port and the government's involvement to capitalize and invest $3.5 billion in the infrastructure, I think we will take this challenge away, and definitely Georgia will become the place for multinational companies. Our aim is to bring big companies. So it's also a totally different approach. We are looking to bring those companies who are not in Georgia yet and to fully offer all the services that they are seeking. So at this point, we are actively doing investment promotion. We have traveled to a number of international countries, and we already have a number of international companies in our pipeline who are ready to see the further development and to enter to our market through Anaklia City and Anaklia Deep Sea Port.
Thank you so much, Katie. It's such an extraordinary scope to that project. Now, Mr. Pankaj Birla from Marriott International, as a senior figure in one of the world's largest hotel chains, what evidence do you see of Georgia's growth as a destination for international tourism, and how can its location and business infrastructure benefit international business travelers?
Again, we heard from the minister earlier, the tourism arrivals in the country is already at 7 million, which was all of last year. So that's a very, very encouraging trend. Again, in our industry, we always look at ease of access to travel into the country, and it's very encouraging that almost 100 countries can travel into Georgia without visa, which only we can see from our source markets as we study in our hotels. And you can see that demand is continuing to come from newer markets, which we never thought before would have happened. Markets like Israel, we are seeing big growth coming from Israel. We are starting to see arrivals from China, starting to see arrivals from India. As we heard, again, combined with both the business potential Georgia has to offer, the beautiful country it is, I think the key ingredient for us and why why we've been successful and why we feel very, very positive about the future is the people of Georgia. Is the hospitality the people here offer that really, really differentiates across the region we operate in. And I handle countries across Russia and CIS, and Georgia just offers a lot of potential in future. And I am extremely positive about the future. So thank you.
That famous Georgia hospitality. Thank you very much, Mr. Birla. And Mr. Prashant Joshi, you've an international perspective and lead a joint venture with partners in India and Norway. How is Georgia placed, would you say, to make use of its natural energy resources and fast-growing infrastructure to create a new regional frontier?
It's a very important question, and I would say that if prima facie, if you see all the elements that are required to propel Georgia forward, they are there. The government is supportive, the pace of reforms is very encouraging, the local population is quite honest, transparent, the culture is welcoming for private investors into the country. It has a young talent pool. Obviously, there would be some matching up required to be done for addressing various sectors. However, we need to understand the animal that energy or infrastructure projects are. They are capital intensive in nature, which means very high stakes for the investors. as also the gestation period is very long, which means there could be changing scenarios, different forces disrupting the originally envisaged concepts. And this, because of these aspects, this market disruption or market dynamics and maybe other factors, one needs to be very pragmatic when you conceptualize and plan on the long term for energy and infrastructure. If you say the major factors that impact, if you intend to take them to the logical conclusion, availability of resources, no question. Georgia is really well placed in terms of availability of natural resources and hydropower, more than 80% untapped potential. Secondly, in terms of skill sets, it has a very young talent pool, but obviously, and the Prime Minister mentioned one of the primary agendas in terms of education reform. That's very encouraging. That will help Georgia a long way in feeding this energy and infrastructure sectors with the right amount and right quantity of professionals. The second aspect is funding and bankability. I think Richard mentioned a very important point. Even in countries like Georgia or maybe other countries, project finance is a challenge. It's not as easy as it seems to be. And this is very true of energy and infrastructure as well. The thing is, because of the third factor which I am going to mention is the market dynamics, it can change. We have a prime example here. Who would have envisaged that the Turkish market, the tariffs in Turkish market would reduce by 50% in just 1 or 2 years' time? It has an impact on existing projects in the pipeline, existing projects, operational projects, and also existing projects which are being planned. So probably the way forward is also to take a very pragmatic view as how support can be provided for projects which are in advanced stage so that they see the light of the day and start delivering benefits to the intended beneficiaries. So that's very important. To make the existing projects or the advanced projects viable is one important factor that the Georgian government has to keep in its perspective. The second aspect is the legislative framework. In terms of predictability, in terms of facilitating, see, private investors are new to a geography. They wouldn't understand the local language, local cultures, and it would benefit a lot if the Georgian government does sort of a pre-education to investors. Okay, these are the things that you need to go through, and these are the kind of supports and maybe a single window concept to make. I'm actually very much impressed by the public registry concept here, where everything is for the locals, for the citizens, available under a single roof. I think that's a similar sort of concept. If that can be implemented for promoting investments, I think that would be a great step for the Georgian government to take forward. The last and not the least, facilitating permitting approvals leads to reducing possible delays in infrastructure projects. And each day of saved is each day earned in terms of delivering the benefits to the intended, also make the projects more viable for the investor. So it's a win-win situation for that. I think these are the major aspects that I would really like to impress on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joshi. Mr. Richard Tollis, could you give us an EY perspective on why Georgia can be a natural economic hub thanks to its strategic location?
So I was very interested to see the Siemens map from the last century earlier on. When I travel, I often see different maps of the world where the country where I'm at is in the middle of it, and that's the beauty of living on a ball, is that everybody can be in that place. I'm Australian, and I can say that Australia in the middle of the map looks very weird. But actually, Georgia is. Georgia really is an incredible geopolitical location. Georgia really can connect east and west very effectively. So I think it starts with a natural advantage. But what's, I think, even more important, and the points that my co-panelists have been making just now, is the steps that the government and society have been taking to facilitate that are absolutely critical. Being in the right place is not enough. You've got to actually take advantage of it. And I think we can see signs of that. So one of the comments that was made just a second ago about the legal context, I think, is very interesting. People, investors who are required, a transit hub, a transport hub, a logistics hub is almost by definition an international thing. People need to believe in the legal environment in which they operate. But actually, it's more than that. There are plenty of environments where there is a well-defined legal code, but where it's not actually enforced effectively. I mean, we can even see that, for example, in certain parts of the EU, not necessarily always consistent. I think people believing that the law is clear and is enforceable on a transparent basis, these things are really essential. So I think many of the steps that have been taken quite recently, simplifying things, I think the establishment of free trade agreements, these sorts of things are critical. But I think it's believing in the solidity of an investment in the country. This is one of the most critical things. Infrastructure is, by definition, long life. You've got to believe, you can't walk away with it. Once you've put it there, your hydro system is only good where it is, really. I suppose you could move the turbines, but it is where it is. So you have to believe that in the sustainability of the economic context for that over the long period.
Thank you, Richard. Now, finally, Ms. Flavia Palanza from the EIB, you have a special responsibility for neighbouring countries to the European Union. Could you tell us how the investment in infrastructure in Georgia can help the country grow its importance as a transit corridor?
Thank you. I think there are two prerequisites for Georgia to become a transit country between Europe and Asia, and for Georgia also to grow as an economic and financial hub for the region. One, as Mr. Troll was saying before, is the importance of a conducive business climate, and Georgia has excelled in making the country in providing a propitious environment for investment. The other is infrastructure, and in infrastructure, because we speak of transit, we speak not only but primarily of roads. Now, in Europe, we have a concept of the TENs. The TENs are the trans-European networks, and trans-European networks are roads, pipelines, energy transmissions, which are key to link countries between each other and to promote integration. Georgia, with its east-west highway, is part of what we call the extended trans-European network. And in this, the EIB is supporting the Georgian government in developing this road in two ways. First of all, to improve the transit itself, because, and we do that by investing in, we have about investment for about 750 million on this road through 3 projects, to make sure that the road, the highway standards are international standards, both in terms of quality of the infrastructure itself, but in terms of road safety. Safety being of paramount importance, not only because casualties are devastating for the families, but because of the heavy negative economic impact that an unsafe infrastructure network may have in terms of delays, cost of delay, cost of lost assets, cost of wasted working hours. But in addition to making this road a key link between East and West, the development and the improvement of this road also has a very important role to play in terms of regional development, because the enhanced quality of this motorway will also make it possible to develop the region, to enhance the mobility of the population, to enhance the settlement of businesses around the area, and to promote economic growth, and to promote the development of the region, and the development of the business, and the development of the international business. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Flavia. And that now allows me now to bring this panel towards a close with some very exciting and positive news, which is that very shortly in this hotel, no less than 5 separate memoranda of understanding will be signed on exciting new investment projects representing a great example of partnerships created and finalised actually at this forum. The first involves a subsidiary of GIG, Georgian Industrial Group, which was represented in the previous panel, Seapower, which will be signing a contract with Dongfang Electric Corporation of China for the construction of a coal-fired thermal power plant here in Georgia. 2 memoranda of understanding will be signed by the Partnership Fund. We had David Saganalitsa from the Partnership Fund at the previous session. One will be with Sedin Engineering of China, the other with ICBC, also of China. And finally, 2 more MOUs involving the European Investment Bank. We have Flavia with us now. The first is with TBC Bank of Georgia, the other with Credo Bank, also of Georgia. And these signings will take place shortly on the second level of the Biltmore Hotel here near the amphitheatre. So on that very positive note, we conclude our session. I'd like to thank all of our distinguished panellists for their outstanding contributions today. We now break for lunch. After lunch, this room will be available for ad hoc B2B meetings. Pre-arranged B2B meetings will take place on the second floor of the hotel. So thank you very much, everyone. Please enjoy the rest of the Tbilisi Belt and Road Forum. Thank you.